Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tammy Mastroberte, founder of Elevated Existence and publisher and editorial director of Elevated Existence magazine. Today, we are here with Jessica Ortner, who's going to be talking about her new book, The Tapping Solution for Weight Loss and Body Confidence. She's also the producer of the film The Tapping Solution with her brother, and who's also an author, Nick Ortner. And she's the host of the Tapping World Summit, an online summit that this year had over 500,000 attendees. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I love the book because you kind of started off right away saying you didn't want to write another weight loss book or another diet book. And you didn't want to, write a book that was about what you need to eat for breakfast or what diet you need to follow. This is really kind of almost not at all about the food piece of it. This is really about everything else that people struggle with weight loss. So I want to start by asking you, what was kind of your breakthrough moment where you started realizing there was more to this kind of yo-yo dieting and this struggle that you were going through, and how you could use tapping as part of that?
Well, I was on the yo-yo dieting bandwagon, and I jumped on when I was about maybe 14, 15 years old. And even though I had made a documentary film about tapping, and it was my career, I was not using it for the one thing in my life that caused me the most pain, which was my weight and my relationship with my own body. And one of the reasons was because I was so brainwashed to believe that it was just about food and exercise. And so I would get really enthusiastic about a diet. I'd stick with it. I would maybe lose a few pounds, but then I would feel so restricted and just miserable. And then, or something else would grab my attention and I'd go back to my old ways of eating and then gain the weight back. And it was this constant back and forth. And one day, really something that kind of woke me up was I was recognized for the first time by a fan, and she looked me up and down, and she goes, "Oh, you're a lot bigger than I thought."
Oh my goodness.
And so, like anyone, I was obviously very hurt, and it was one of many times that I had someone commenting on my body. And, before, I would always feel like I had to lose weight to show value, to have value in this world. And so I did want it, but I also felt like it's what I needed to happen in order for me to have the career that I wanted and the relationship that I wanted. And all of my happiness was dependent on my weight. And that's why I felt so much stress around it. And for some reason, when she said that to me, the fact that she was a fan, and she said something like this, made me realize that the one thing that I wasn't doing was looking within. The one thing that I wasn't doing was looking at the relationship I had with my body and how I felt about myself, regardless of what she thought. And in that moment, I thought, I'm tired of trying so hard and not getting results. I'm tired of this being such a massive wound, such a massive pain for me. I want to heal from this. I want to do inner work. And so I decided a few things. One, my first rule was that I wasn't allowed to do any fad diet. And no extreme exercising, no boot camps or whatever. I just wanted to stop that craziness so I could go within and kind of sense what was good for me. And the second rule was I placed so much of my happiness around my weight. And I would always say to myself, well, I'll get on camera when I lose weight. I'll go on a date when I lose weight. And I realized that I was putting my entire life on hold. And I had to stop. I didn't, before I thought that I could live once I lost weight. Then I realized I have to live now. And when I was able to start doing those things that scared me, I realized what was stopping me never was the weight, it was my fear. And once I was able to look at my fear and use tapping, I was able to sense in my body what was right for me. And it was like the lack of stress over dieting helped me, lose over 30 pounds. But more than that, this is the thing. People lose weight all the time, and then you gain it. And people lose weight all the time, and they're still miserable.
Right.
I want to just be thin. I want to be happy.
Right.
Before, even if I had lost some weight from a diet and it would only last a short time, I still was always like, if I could just this thing right here, if I could just lose this thing, then I'll be happy.
Right.
And what I stopped doing, and not that transformed my life, not just my body.
Right. And what one thing you say again, kind of right up front in the book, is that so many people, like you said, they get caught up in if I weigh this amount, or if I look this way, or if I eat this much food instead of this much food, and they kind of lose sight of the emotion piece. And you say in the book, emotions are really the key to this whole problem that we're dealing with, and it's emotions, it's stress, like you said, and it's also these limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves and about weight loss and things like that. So how does emotions play a role, and why is it such an important piece of this work?
There's two reasons why we have to look at emotions. One, if we're just looking at biology, if we're looking at our bodies, when we are stressed, we have an overproduction of this hormone called cortisol. Yeah. Now, an overproduction of cortisol is directly related to belly fat. It's also linked to increasing your cravings. Harvard did a study that showed that, a lot of it was with animals, but that showed under stress, the cravings are for those sugary carbohydrates. And so we're stressed, and we don't want a lot of celery. We want that cookie, we want that cake for a reason, because our body is saying, I am under so much stress, I need some relief, and this is how I'm going to get my release. This is how I'm going to feel better. So one is that stress impacts our cravings. A second thing is that stress is linked to belly fat. And actually the third thing is that all of our actions are based on our emotions. So oftentimes we know what we should do, but we're just not doing it. Why is that? It's because there's a feeling behind that. There's an emotion that's preventing us from doing what we know. We know we should work out. Why aren't we doing it? Well, let's look at the emotions we feel about working out. Is it our punishment for being fat? Is it something that we look as torture? Does it remind us of not fitting in gym class? All those things make a big difference as to whether you're going to go out and take a walk or go for a run, and how much fun you're going to have, and whether it's going to be sustainable. So yes, you got to work out. Yes, you have to eat right. I mean, it's part of taking care of our body, of self-care. But we're not going to do what we know if we don't look at the emotions that are stopping us from doing what is good for us.
Right, right. And the other piece is, I know in part of it, you kind of explain in this work that we're talking about, which is known as EFT, the emotional freedom technique, or also a lot of people call it tapping. It's almost like the work that you're doing, the weight loss piece of it is kind of like a side effect of everything. It's like you're doing all this work on yourself and you're going to lose the weight, but that's not really the focus. So how does EFT or tapping actually work when it comes to weight loss? What is actually happening?
Well, so let me explain how tapping works, and then I'll link it to weight loss.
Okay.
So when we are stressed about that wedding coming up and we need to fit into that dress, whether we're in the wedding or not, or, bikini season or whatever it is, especially as women, we put so much value, we live in a society that really kind of puts a lot of value on our appearance. And so our self-worth is so tied into how we look that we can be very critical, and we create this panic. And what happens when, we're panicking over something is there's a part of the brain called the amygdala that fires off the fight or flight response, which creates what we're talking about, this overproduction of cortisol. It creates also a lot of adrenaline. Your heart starts to race. And that's because our ancestors, when they were under danger, and even still now, if right now we're talking and a lion walks into the room, you're going to stop paying attention to this interview that you need to do. Your body's going to go into panic, because that's exactly what you need to be in full alert to do the thing, right? To protect yourself. But when it comes to us thinking about getting into a bikini, that's not life-threatening. But our brain acts like it's life-threatening because we have that stress response. We feel like it's not safe. We feel like we could be judged, that we're not enough. And so suddenly the brain, the amygdala, starts to fire off that fight or flight response, and we have all of those sensations that you have if a tiger walked into the room.
Right.
The challenge with having those sensations are twofold. One, it creates a hormonal cocktail in your body that's completely toxic and prevents your ability to lose weight. The second thing that happens is that you're not able to have control. You don't feel like you're control over your actions. It's hard to think clearly and be creative or resourceful when we're panicked. So many of us get our best ideas in the shower, and that's because we're relaxed.
Right.
So when we can relax, we can begin to realize well, what do I need to do for my body that's going to help me? How can I support myself? Then we can be creative and find solutions to how can I fit this in my busy life, or how can I make this easier? But if we're under that panic, again, we have that hormonal cocktail that's messing with us, and we can't act in a way that serves us. So when we're tapping on these acupressure points, what we're doing is we're actually feeling those feelings. So it's not about just positive thinking, it's about actually giving yourself a moment where you're very honest with yourself and you allow yourself to feel those feelings that you might have been stuffing down with food. You allow yourself to feel that anxiety you have about the wedding. You feel that anxiety about getting to a bathing suit. And as your brain is firing off that fight or flight response, you begin to start stimulating these acupressure points. Now, these are acupressure points that intuitively we go to when we're stressed. I mean, how many times do you see people going like this, or like this, having their hand out, or they grab their chests? We intuitively know that this is where we go to find some comfort, some release. But what we're doing here is we're tapping on these acupressure points while we feel that anxiety. And that sends a calming signal to the brain from the body to let the brain know that you are safe, it's safe to relax. Because the truth is that when we're feeling anxiety, it's not just in our head, we're feeling it in our body.
Yeah.
So it really creates that communication between our body and our mind.
Right. Now, I know when it comes to tapping, the most immediate benefits that you can get are when you're stressed out, to bring yourself back down, or even, one of the biggest things is if, you have a pain in your body and then you tap and you see that pain disappear. That's kind of like the immediate effects or the immediate benefits of it. And I know in the book you talk about, dealing with, where you can tap on cravings, and then you can go deeper and tap on, these limiting beliefs that are holding you back. So first I want to ask about cravings and how we can use this when we're in a moment of craving, and how does that work on cravings? How do you figure out what to tap on when it comes to that, whether you're craving chocolate or chips, or you shouldn't have that cookie but you want to do it.
Right. This is one of my favorites. When I speak on stage, I bring people up on stage, and chocolate tends to be, one of the biggest cravings that I have. And so I get there and I rip open the chocolate and I make them smell it, and I usually do it right before lunch, and I get their cravings up. And there's two ways that you can address cravings with tapping. When you have that craving, what you can do is simply focus on that craving and stimulate the points. So it's as simple as saying, you tap on the side of the hand and you do the setup statement, which I'll explain more in a moment. But the setup statement is, even though I have this craving, I accept how I feel. Just something where we find some peace, where we can be honest. It helps us really be honest with the rest of the process. There's something powerful about accepting where we are.
Right.
Then you begin to tap on the points, and you just say, this craving, I want it so bad. No one better get in my way. I want this craving for chocolate. Just focusing on the symptom. That's called symptom tapping. And just by calming ourselves down, by giving a voice to how badly we want something, the craving tends to shift. So a few months ago, I was in London, and I had 3 women on stage tapping on cravings. And that's where I always start, just symptom craving. And one woman was like, great, it's gone. She, after doing a few rounds of tapping, she didn't have the craving. 2 of the other women, it went from a 10 to like a 5 to a 4. So they weren't desperate for it, but they still wanted it.
Right.
The next step is to go deeper. And 2 women had interesting experiences. One woman said that she felt the craving in her chest. So we began to use that information and began tapping on, even though I have this craving in my chest, I accept how I feel. And just having her tap into, just focus on that craving in her chest. After a few rounds, she kind of looks at me with these wide eyes, and she goes, the craving's gone, but I realized something. And she told me that her grandmother, she called her Nana, had passed away. And she used to when she would spend quality time with her Nana, they would eat chocolate together. And that was her way to connect with her Nana.
Okay.
Which hence that her craving wasn't in her stomach or her throat, but it was in her chest.
Yes.
Amazing how our body works like that. And so what she was really craving was that connection from her grandmother. And that's how cravings can go deeper. That's one example. Another example with the third woman, her craving was going down, but still wasn't disappearing. And I asked her, what's the downside of letting go of this craving? And then I asked her, when do you usually have the craving? Because it's important to notice timing. And she would say, every day when I get back from work. And I said to her, what's the downside of getting rid of this craving? And she said, I'd have no way to relax. And we talked about that chocolate after work was her only way to feel pleasure. And this is the thing with so many women, is that we deprive ourselves of pleasure, and the only pleasure we have is maybe that chocolate. And then we go on a diet, and we wonder why it's so hard for us. Well, it's so hard for us because we're meant to have pleasure in our life, and suddenly we take the last bit of pleasure that we've been giving ourselves away. So now we feel, we don't feel good enough. We can't find a way to relax. And so by looking at this with the tapping, you can get to the root of, why are you denying yourself pleasure? What are the beliefs that you have that the only way that you can feel good about yourself is that moment when you are indulging in something sweet?
Right.
And begin to focus on either the stress around taking time for yourself, and again, just the symptom craving. So you can see how when you do the tapping, I feel like your intuition opens up. Because you're calm, you're able to be resourceful, and you're able to make that connection yourself and go, I never thought of it, but I always crave chocolate right before I need to go out of the house. Like right before I leave the house, and that's when I'm the most anxious.
Right.
Then it's on the being anxious, and not the craving, but the anxiety, the anxiousness of what you have coming up, what you're going to.
And what's fascinating about it is that a lot of those cravings, and you say this in the book as well, is they're really linked to an emotion. And by tapping on that craving, it's like you bring that emotion up to the surface, and you're like, oh, okay, this is why I want X, Y, or Z, or whatever it is that you're craving.
Yeah, and then we don't have to feel like a victim anymore. Like there's something wrong with us. We begin to have more of an understanding of why we were acting in a certain way. One of my favorite sayings that I wrote in the book is, self-sabotage is misguided self-love. Because so often we beat ourselves up because we think, oh, I know what I should be doing, I'm not doing it. Why did I just, binge eat like that? But if we can take a step back and really ask ourselves, we can see that in that moment we were looking for love, we were looking for peace. And so it was self-love, it was misguided self-love. So now let's guide ourselves to a better form of love and a better way to feel good.
Right. And in the book, you kind of lead into, emotional eating, which is how this is really all connected. And you offer a bunch of, which I love, the tapping scripts, where people can literally follow, and you give them what to say, and they can kind of follow the different points and tap with what you're saying because a lot of people get stuck where they're like, this sounds great, but how do I know what to say? So I love when there's scripts that you guys offer. So those are in the books as well. And then it kind of progresses into almost like, you bust through these emotions, you go through these limiting beliefs, and then it's kind of time to put in the positive beliefs. So the book kind of goes into even finding pleasure in exercise and changing your beliefs around that, and changing your relationship with food. So how does tapping help to kind of create these new positive viewpoints around weight loss and around food?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to use tapping for any beliefs that we want to change. And I was just working yesterday with a TV producer who was a little bit skeptical, and she wanted to tap around beliefs around relationships. And we know, especially people who are listening to this show, like we're the ones that are reading the books. We're into spirituality. We know these concepts. They're not new. But the challenge is, when we are so stressed, we can hear something, but we can't take it in. It doesn't feel congruent. Have you ever been trying to talk to someone who's in a panic, and just telling them to calm down? You're trying to use logic, and you're trying to reason with them, but it's like there's a wall. They just don't get it because they're so stressed out about the situation.
Right.
That's how we are with beliefs. We're hearing these things, and we know how we should act, and we know how to be logical, but then there's a part of us that just has this block because there's this emotion that says, yeah, I hear this, but it doesn't feel true because I have this anxiety that's telling me something else.
Right.
And so the key is always to start with the negative belief. It's to start with the anxiety. That's just the most important thing. Start where you are. And once you're able to feel calm, you can say these positive beliefs, and now there's room. It's like you have to pull out the weeds before planting the flowers. So now there's room to really take in these new beliefs, and because you're calm, they feel true. Now, like, what you have to remember is that with the tapping, all we're doing really is sending that calming signal to the brain. So when we're anxious and we have a calming signal, our brain goes, this doesn't match up because this negative thought is supposed to create a negative reaction. It's not. So maybe this negative thought isn't true. You have some power and you can let go. But if you have a positive belief and then you have a positive signal, it feels congruent. It's easier. You're like, oh, I actually can feel calm.
Right.
So that's why you can use tapping while focusing on both. But it's always important to start with where you are, or else you can just continuously hit that wall because it just doesn't feel true. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, and that's why I think a lot of people say, why do we tap on the negative, or why do we start with the negative? And it's like, you kind of have to start there, and then you can introduce the positive piece to it.
Yes, exactly.
So I definitely want to do some tapping so that people who are watching, who maybe don't know the points, can see them, and also kind of if we can tap on something maybe that's universal on this topic of weight loss and body confidence, so that people can have a script to follow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the best places to start is what I call the pattern of panic. It's like we know we have an event coming up, or we just saw ourselves in the mirror, we saw the scale, and all of a sudden we panic. And a lot of us are tricked into believing that we need that panic, because that panic would sometimes lead us to a diet where we would lose a few pounds. But then that panic goes away, and that was our only fuel for being a little bit healthy, and we go right back to to binge eating or whatever that is. So we have to break this habit of the panic and of the beating ourselves up. And so I think that's a great place to start, to tap on the panic, and then we can move towards feeling centered in our body and knowing what's good for us.
Okay. And if you want, I can mirror you as you go.
Absolutely. So we're going to start. Let me explain the setup statement a little bit more, because sometimes people look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them that they have to accept how they feel.
Right.
And I get it. I understand. So when we have an emotion, like a lot of times we're angry, and then we're angry at ourselves for being angry. And especially when especially people in this environment where we know what we should be thinking, we shame ourselves when there's a negative feeling. And that just builds on those negative emotions, and that really keeps us stuck into place. And so when we're able to accept the way that we feel, we're able to release that certain level of judgment so that we can move forward. A lot of times it's our inability to accept how we feel that locks those feelings into place.
Yeah.
So tapping on the karate chop point. Okay. Should I go through the points, or should we just tap and people can see?
Go through the points really quick, and then we'll tap.
This is karate chop point. It doesn't matter what side of the hand you tap on or what side of the body. Some people do two, some people do one. I'm right-handed, so I tend to tap on my right side. The eyebrow point is the second point, and it's right where the hair of your eyebrow begins on the bone. And then if you follow that bone, you'll be on the side of your eye. So not on the temple, but right on the side of the eye. Underneath the eye, on the bone. Underneath the nose. The chin, which is the crease between the lip and the chin. Then the collarbone point, if you feel that U shape, you don't go down an inch and over an inch, and you tap there. Or you can just use the palm of your hand and just tap on your chest. Underneath the arm, this is called the sore spot. So it's a hand width from your armpit. And for women, it's pretty easy because it's right where our bra strap lies, kind of really close to the wire if you have a wire. And then on top of the head is the final point. Okay. So that's the basic points. And should we do some tapping?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so tapping on the side of the hand. Even though I feel this panic. I'm losing weight. I accept myself and how I feel.
I
feel all of this panic. Weight.
About losing weight.
Accept myself and how I feel.
I accept myself and how I feel.
Okay, one more time, even though I have all this panic. About losing weight. I accept myself and how I feel. Eyebrow, all of this panic. Side of the eye, I need to change now. The eye, I need to jump into another diet. Under the nose, I need to punish myself.
I need to punish myself.
Chin, because I can't live like this.
Because I can't live like this.
Collarbone, all of this pressure.
All of this pressure.
Under the arm, all of this unfairness.
All of this unfairness.
Top of the head, I try so hard.
I try so hard.
And nothing works.
And nothing works.
And all I have.
And all I have.
Is this panic.
Is this panic.
Under the nose, feeling this panic.
Feeling this panic.
Chin, releasing this panic.
Releasing this panic.
Collarbone, I need this panic.
I need this panic.
Under the arm, is that really true?
Is that really true?
Top of the head, maybe I can release this panic.
Maybe I can release this panic.
Eyebrow, and still take a step forward.
And still take a step forward.
Side of the eye, maybe I know what's good for me.
Maybe I know what's good for me.
Maybe I can be calm and centered.
Maybe I can be calm and centered.
Under the nose, in this moment.
In this moment.
Chin, I choose peace.
I choose peace.
In this moment.
In this moment.
I choose to be healthy.
I choose to be healthy.
It starts in this moment.
It starts in this moment.
And I have the power.
And I have the power.
Okay, take a deep breath in. So I invite everyone just to notice if they felt anything, maybe a release in their chest, or they could breathe deeper. Maybe your shoulders are now, not up here, but down here.
Right.
When it comes to tapping, what's a good thing to do is to measure how you feel beforehand and measure afterwards. So the panic that we just did, that's a good go-to. That's a good, I'm panicked, this is where I need to go, I need to express the panic, and then when I feel better, look at this a different way. And then, you can really feel the difference, too, when it comes to craving. So I invite people, next time they have a craving, to start tapping and just focusing on that craving for a few rounds. And then notice how the numbers shifted. And it's good to have a number, because I mentioned before when I was working with these women, they went from a 10 to a 6. It was like a 5 or 6, and it was good. But what was great was they were able to see that tapping worked, that it helped bring the craving down, and they were able to see, okay, now I might need to take a different angle. So what's behind this craving?
Right.
And then they tap on the emotion.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that's what I really love about your book, is that it's so universal, no matter what diet plan you're following or think you need to follow, or whatever is going on with you. This is really getting underneath all that. This is getting to the true source of it, and dealing with those emotions, and dealing with those limiting beliefs that have been maybe keeping you on that yo-yo schedule, or really holding you back. And by doing this work, like you said, the fabulous side effect is the weight comes off, and you're happier, and you're healthier, and you're clearing a lot of this stuff that could even be holding you back in other areas that you're not even aware of.
Right. And this is a lifestyle technique, because we're going to have moments in life where, we might have someone close to us die, God forbid, or, we lose a job. It's we don't know what the future holds. And so a lot of times we've used food to kind of comfort ourselves during those really hard times. And I think we need to be easier on ourselves. We were doing that because we needed some peace. But now it's time to find another way to find some release, some relief, so we can feel in control. And to really bring more compassion around this conversation that we're having around our body and around weight. Yes, we need to lose weight, but let's do it where it's in a sustainable way, and that if we ever feel like, we fall, I hate the saying, I fall off the wagon. I mean, who invented this wagon? I've never seen it.
Right.
You're dead. You didn't fall off anything. This is your life. So, but getting rid of that mentality, that of feeling like, okay, one day it'll be perfect, to being like, how can I feel controlled today? And every day choose to do things for myself where I can feel in control and I can feel good. Right. And then that's when we really experience such shifts. But it's a choice that we make every day. Yes,
absolutely. Well, I think the book is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, again, you have the book there, I think, right? Yay, the tapping solution for weight loss and body confidence. And what website can they go to get more information about you and your work?
TheTappingSolution.com.
Yes, and I have to just say also, as an aside note, I actually have your, and I think it's available on the website as an MP3 for stress relief. You have a tapping, a morning and evening one that I love, and I think is fantastic. And there's so many different sources at the website, so definitely go and check it out. And good luck to you with the book, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All
Thanks.
right, bye.
Bye.